Greetings, greetings and salutations. I love the warning, distressing content notification. It gives you this atmosphere like it's about to be on and popping in here. I don't know why they even bother with that. It's like, man, these kids see so much violence on a video game, much less TV, much less at school, much less with their parents or whoever else, much less with their friends, much less in life. But let's give out a warning, distressing content. Like, get out of here, bro. These kids see much worse than you'll ever show them on stupid YouTube. And that's a fact, big bro. So on May 13th, the year of our Lord 2026, a 75-year-old woman went through a drive through at a Tim Hortons up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I've been to Fort Wayne. I'd love to tell you the story, bro. I'd love to tell you the story. Let's just say the females in that area are very welcoming. I'd love to tell y'all the story. Somebody, down the road, I'm gonna tell y'all my Fort Wayne story, and we'll include that in the military stories. Or to go back to my little military days in the U.S. Army. So on May 13th, 2026, um, a 75-year-old black woman went through the drive-through at Tim Hortons Coffee or Cafe and Bakery. Now, up to this point, I never really heard of Tim Hortons, but we know what it is now because she didn't like her order. So she parked, got out, walked in there, went in there to let them know about it under no uncertain terms. And the conversation got heated. It got escalated. It turned into fisticuffs with a 17-year-old and a fist fight with a 75-year-old. They on the ground. They rolling around all on the ground, bro. And the 17-year-old got up from it, and the 75-year-old sat down in one of the booths and then collapsed. She sat down in the booth. She allegedly made a phone call. Then she collapsed and died. Paramedics came and picked her up, took her to the hospital. They worked on her, and I think she was pronounced at the hospital. So before we get into the main video, which is a court TV video, let's watch the New York Post video first. And sometimes New York Post will put up some good videos, but a lot of the videos New York Post puts up are pro-conservative, and thus they are pro-racist. But sometimes they do put up some decent videos. It is what it is. So this is her going into the coffee shop to voice her concerns. So it takes a little while before the action gets jumping. So we're gonna fast forward a little bit. So this is where some of the face to face started. Now, for me personally, when I see videos like this, I begin looking like, look, what did we learn today? What did we learn today? How could we have avoided rolling around on the ground with a 75-year-old, which culminated in her death? You got a whole barrier, you got a whole counter there, you have a whole barrier there. It's like you don't need to get face to face with her. But we're living in the days where everybody's got something to prove. It's funny these because I think Fort Wayne Police, our state police, Indiana State Police, released this video either yesterday or today. But the funny part about it is the type of work I do has some a customer service contingency involved with it. And so um it's funny because I had an older lady today. She probably was 75, 80 years old. She needed my help, and I was unable to help her because I needed to prepare my equipment that was in front of me. I knew it was going to take me a while. So I directed her to a spot where she could get help quicker. It wasn't good enough for her. I got cussed out by an 80-year-old, 75, 80-year-old today. And it's just funny because if I'd have walked over there and cracked, because I wouldn't let nobody else get away with that. If I'd have walked over there and cracked her in her grill, I'm wrong. Which you're not supposed to let words get to that anyway. But don't talk to me crazy. I bet you if I talk to her crazy, I bet you she'd throw something at me. So it's like, where's the civility? I realize, people don't like the way things are going in life, with the country, with different things. Our politicians are screwing us daily. You know, gas prices ain't no joke. The economy's not a joke. The inflation's crazy, out of control. Mental illness is everywhere. Even in people that ain't mentally ill, it's popping up. It's incumbent upon us to try to keep our cools. I didn't say nothing to her. I let her pop off and walk away. But it's incumbent upon all of us to try to keep our cools. Now, I'm not judging nobody because there's times I want to rip people's heads off, bro. Um, but anyway, but when you look at this, you look at like there's a whole barrier. There's no need in getting up close to this individual. Like, stay back, bro. But the funny part about this is what people need to understand. Whenever you walk into a place of business and you go to acting a fool, you probably the 50th person they've heard act and seen act crazy that day. You're not reinventing the wheel. You're not saying or doing nothing original. So you might be talking to people who have absolutely had it. And so that could go a lot of different ways. People need to understand that, bro. Like a lot of these businesses these days, on your receipt, there's a QR code. There's ways that you can contact corporate headquarters, at a minimum, division headquarters, and let them know about your experience. And trust me, when they say crap rolls downhill, it does. So I mean, but people don't do that. People don't do that. People feel trapped. People feel jilted. People feel disrespected. People feel excommunicated. And so people need to get back. People need to walk in a restaurant and get some get back. I'm not gonna front. I walked in a couple of places, got me a little get back. But I said what I needed to say and walked out. I didn't let it get to, well, we about to go heads up. Because most of the time I'm just gonna walk away, bro, before I tear your head off and end up in jail. Most of the time I'm just gonna walk away, bro. I got too much to lose. You know. But people, and I tell people all the time, use that receipt, the survey on the receipt. If it's not a survey, if it's not a QR code, it's some way to contact them on that receipt. Get in contact with them. Go inside and get your product made the right way, and then let them know on that receipt, bro. And then trust me, that's you're doing more harm to them by emailing their bosses than you ever will walking in that store and taking a beat down. Let's get it. I see now he needs to back up. Just back up, bro. And I don't know how it got. Now here comes the shift manager. She's supposed to be 17. She's trying to get her to leave, but see now she put tips on her, and one reason why people are protesting up in Fort Wayne is because they're trying to figure out why the police cut the video, and the video looks edited. There's a piece cut out of the video, so people are trying to figure out what the heck's really going on, bro. But as you see, she put her hands on her to try to get her to step back. But really, they need to be the one step back. You got a barrier there. She's not coming behind the counter, but just back up. Give her 50 feet. Make her product. Figure out what you need to do to make it right so that she goes away, bro. Instead, we let it, and I guarantee you, it's not about this customer. It's about the 50 customers before her that's been cussing them out all morning long and all week long. And it culminates to this. So that's where she's supposed to have took a shot. But then look at this little chick went nuts. And really the 75-year-old ended up pinning her on the ground before they were able to get out there and get them separated. Let's look at that again. See, she put hands on her. That's really why she got pushed back. And supposedly that's where grandma threw the punch. And then old girl just went nuts. I mean, she went nuts on grandma. Now they end up getting them separated, but she's got her. She pulled like a clump of hair out of her head. I don't. It had to have been weave or something, but they couldn't get them separated because she had a clump of hair in her hand, and she wouldn't let go. She's look at that. She still see that circle right there. She still got her hair. She still got her hair. Part of it's on the floor. Like she's sitting down there, her heart's racing. She had a previous heart condition. I mean, it's madness. It's madness. So they tried to say that she had the hair in her hand, but I don't see that. I see the hair is like still on the floor. I don't know if that old girl had a weave or if she really did pull that out of her scalp. I don't know. But now let's go to the court TV video. Okay, so as you can see, it's a hot mess. The only reason I even discovered this was because I was looking at Roland Martin's YouTube page, and I don't agree with Roland on a lot of things. It's really just a Democratic hack, but it's still one of the few pages that I can get on to try to figure out what is these black folks talking about. What is these black Democrats complaining about today? It's just something to sort of watch and pass the time, stay up on what's sort of some of the things that's going on. But it had coffee brawl underneath one of his live streams. I'm like, what is this coffee brawl thing? So when I looked it up, it told me about this incident that happened on May 13th in Fort Wayne. But the Fort Wayne or the Indiana State Police are just now releasing a video, which I think, because a lot of these videos are a day old, so they must have released it yesterday. Regardless, people are up in arms, and they up in arms because that little bitty white girl beat up on that 75-year-old black grandma. And I guarantee you, the 75-year-old has enablers at home. And I'm not a conservative. I'm not anti-black. But I just know people have a tendency to act a fool when they get out in public and when they've had enablers at home. And the situation didn't have to, both parties are at fault. The situation didn't have to go this far. But Indiana does not have a duty to retreat law. Like other states have a duty to retreat law, which says that unless your life is in danger or someone else's life is in danger, if there's an opportunity to retreat, you need to step back. They did not need to get in her face. And she wouldn't even been able to swing on them. She's 75. Step back. When people are angry, disgruntled, distracted, disappointed, step back, give them room to let that go. Figure out how to make her coffee the right way. The behavior of the employees in that coffee shop let me know that they get cussed out all the time in there and they've had it. That doesn't excuse the behavior, doesn't make it okay, doesn't give them a license to behave the way they did, but it is what it is, bro. It is what it is. And, I caution people that, when you flip out in a place like that, you probably the 50th, 60th person that day they've seen act a whole fool. So you don't know what's about to go down, bro. In your world, everything revolves around you and your coffee. In their world, everything revolves around all the people coming in there just like you that be flipping out on them. And people, please use your receipt. Trust me, it when you talk to corporate, it goes a long way, a long, long way. Corporate bosses get it, division presidents get it, executive vice presidents of operations and customer service get it, uh, district managers. All these people get 6 and 7 figures a year. Y'all excuse my sinuses are going crazy, bro. I cut the grass today. There's so much pollen in the air, it looks like snow, and that's a fact, bro. But you got 6 figure and 7 figure people that get those emails and get those surveys and get that feedback. That's why they're begging for that feedback. It's not just to give employees praise. It's not just so they can improve their operations and their customer service. It's so that a ticked off customer doesn't feel trapped and will go in a store and catch a beat down. Now I guarantee you grandma had enablers, bro. I guarantee it. The people at her house let her just act a whole fool. And now she out here in public, and I don't care how old your grandma is, somebody gonna knock her clean out, like Mike Tyson. And then they gonna bite her ear off, bro. Does that make it okay? No. Is it right? No. Because those Hortons employees, their lives are that girl that got in that fight with her life is ruined now by this. Her life is ruined now by this. Although Indiana has no duty to retreat law, still that civil suit is going to be huge. Horton's is going to fire that girl. That girl went crazy. I had to watch that about 10 times. That girl went crazy. But Horton's is going to fire that girl, and uh, she's going to lose that. So Horton's is going to get sued over this. That's why you can't have racist laws like this stand your ground and duty to retreat law. It's a racist law because now all these racist politicians in Indiana can feel better about themselves because this little white chick beat up this old black grandma. But at the end of the day, Hortons is gonna get sued for millions and lose money. That girl is gonna be facing a civil suit, and she's gonna wish that the possibility of getting locked up is all that would have happened to her. She's gonna hope, wish, and pray, bro. But at the end of the day, her life is ruined by this. She's gonna be owing that family for the rest of her life. And she's gonna have collection agencies chasing her for the rest of her life for however many millions. It's probably gonna be somewhere on the order of 5 to 7 to 10 billion. And Hortons is gonna have to pay out. That's why you can't have racist law. Like you have to have now. Now, if Indiana had a duty to retreat law, would that have prevented this? But Maybe not, maybe so, but you at least want to give people something to think about. Sometimes you got to make an example out of people, and you at least want to give people something to think about. You have a whole barrier in between you and that woman. Back up. Don't get in her face. Back up. She's upset. Make her stuff the right way and give it to her and duck and hope she don't throw hot coffee on you. And then, if she want to act a fool, then if you need to call the law, then you got to do what you got to do. And now she can go sit in jail for a little while. Get to keep your job and not get sued for 7 million, 5 million. And your employer doesn't have to lose 10 million. I guarantee you it's gonna be 10 million minimum. And that's a fact, bro. All right. So this is a court TV video, and for a lot of you young people that don't understand court TV, if it was not for OJ Simpson, there would be no court TV. If it was not for uh, OJ Simpson, there would be no court TV, bro. And that's a fact, bro. Let's hit it.
75-year-old Anita Grayson was going to get some coffee at Tim Hortons in Fort Wayne, Indiana, but there was a problem with her order, so she went inside. And that's when things went sideways. Anita got into an argument with employees, which escalated. Then things got physical. Everyone ended up down on the floor, and Anita ended up dead. Then rumors started circulating about what happened, and police responded by issuing a statement and releasing the security video. FWPD homicide detectives and crime scene personnel conducted a full death investigation. Detectives interviewed witnesses, collected and reviewed surveillance video, gathered evidence, and fully documented the scene. No one's been arrested. Some members of the community think someone should be.
No human being should go to get coffee and die on a floor from a heart attack.
We will break down the video frame by frame and answer the question, should someone be arrested? Anita Grayson was 75 years old, and she was just going for some coffee. And she goes inside Tim Hortons and does not come out alive. What happened inside? It was all caught on video, but not everyone is seeing the same thing. We're going to show you the video, break it down, show you the law, and then answer the question, should someone be arrested? I'm Vinny Politan. Let's investigate.
So let's fast forward through some of this intro.
Hi there, and this is the Book of Mormon.
These people look creepy to me,
talks
bro.
about Jesus Christ. I've seen the Book of Mormon.
You know, and I
change my
know
life
nobody
so
watching
much.
this commercial
We
is
would love
thinking
to give you
about
one as well.
the Book
As
of
you can see,
Mormon
we have
or
lots
Jesus
of copies.
Christ. They think
So
about
click the
one
link
thing,
below, and
bro.
missionaries will drop it
These
off your house
people
and
are
share a quick
creepy
little
to me,
message
bro.
about Jesus Christ.
Facts.
Thank you.
That's really the headline in this entire story, but there's more levels to this that you have to understand as we get ready to take a look at this video. And it begins with the Tim Hortons employees. The employee was a juvenile, 17 years old. So you have a 75-year-old who's a senior who we like to protect in society. But the employee.
So my thing is this. Just because even if state police, even if she doesn't get state charges, that still doesn't mean that she won't get county charges or charged by the city, like the city prosecutor or the county prosecutor. But, if we didn't have all these fascists running around the Department of Justice, that they could possibly come down and bring charges. But it looks like it's going to be a long, drawn out process. It might be 2 to 3 years before you start seeing the different judicial levels of judiciary begin to make moves. But it doesn't. But if it was me, if it was white grandma, and if And if it was a black female punching on her like that, it's gonna be case closed. That girl gonna be sitting underneath the jail, awaiting potentially a life sentence of 20 to 25 to life. But politicians are gonna jump all over this. They're gonna use stand your ground, and like I said before, Indiana has no duty to retreat. And you saw all types of opportunities for those people to, man, just step back and let the old woman vent and make her coffee so she can get on up the road. People got something to prove. You know,
Is not an adult. He's a juvenile, 17 years old. So you have one part of society that we try to protect, which are juveniles, children, and seniors. But these two are the ones that come into conflict. And that's kind of the problem with this story, is where do your sympathies lie? Where should our system's sympathies lie, with a juvenile or with the senior adult, right? Now, on Facebook, a lot of community outrage in this case because of the headline. 75-year-old woman goes in to get some coffee, ends up dead, right? That's going to cause outrage. Something needs to be done. How on earth does that happen? And no one's in trouble for it? Really? And you can understand that. But what happened locally in the community is that all of a sudden people were like, what's going on here? Right? Is there more to the story? Why aren't police acting?
see what people don't understand, and what a lot of people are leaving out is Indiana is a red state. Mike Pence used to be the governor here. Donald Trump comes and he stumps all up through here. He just had Donald Trump just primaried six members of Congress out of seven. I think one of them, it was a runoff, but he primaried the rest of them because they wouldn't redistrict and gerrymander the state like he asked them to. So, this is very much a red state. They want to be like Mississippi, Alabama. They're going to politicize this thing, and it's going to be racially charged. So, it just is what it is. With honestly, and look, I'm not a conservative, I'm not anti-black, but honestly, people need to keep their grandma at home if she like to act a fool in the streets. And I said it before, I'll say it again. People need to understand that you better be explaining to grandma that, look, those people out there that you be yelling at are not your grandkids. They're not your kids, not your grandkids. They don't care that you somebody's grandma, that you 75. People out here will split your wig and lay you out on the coffee floor. That's a fact, big bro.
So the Fort Wayne Police Department issues a statement and basically says there is a false narrative out in the community about what happened inside of the Tim Hortons. And as a result, we're going to tell you the facts of what happened, and we're going to release the video and show it to you. The problem is, when they released the video, the community outrage did not end, because people are looking at that video and different people are seeing different things as to what happens between this 75-year-old woman and this 17-year-old employee and his shift leader, who is 20 years old. So same people, or different people looking at the same video, are seeing a different scenario. So let's get right to it. I'm going to show you this video and we'll take a look at what happened inside Tim Hortons. There's no audio, so you don't hear the back and forth, but you can see and read the body language and what's happening. So let's take a look. And remember, police believe this shows that, okay, this is the real story of what happened and maybe no one should be arrested. Typical. Here she comes. She's had some problem with her order, and that's why she's entering, and I guess looking for someone to speak to about her issue. Now, customer service tells you, right, the customer's always right, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, but that
But sometimes
you
we've
know
seen
that
customers who
that customer's always right. Um, that's been going on for a long time, bro. And customer always right has now culminated and resulted in customer walk in and go off, and you can't say nothing. And it's funny how companies are just, companies have all these period block instructions, instructionals, and training manuals where they're begging employees, look, if somebody come in and act a fool, let it be. You can only take so much of that, bro. Like people are human. You ain't gonna talk crazy to me in the street, so I'm gonna let you talk crazy to me at work. I'm not at your job acting a fool. I'm not catching up with you somewhere and acting a fool. Why you acting a fool at my job? You know, there's something that happens when people leave the house, and I think the internet, is somewhat to blame of it. The internet makes all of us feel special and different. You're special. You're different. When you pop off, it's all original. They never heard these things before. You know, your coffee, the only one got messed up. Them people behind the counter are not neurosurgeons. Them people getting $8, $9, $10 an hour. Indiana never really raised the minimum wage, so there's still people in Indiana getting $8.75, bro. There's still people getting 10, $11 an hour, $12 an hour, bro, and getting 10-cent increases. We can get into that discussion. Maybe they need to work somewhere else and all that good stuff, but you know, it is what it is in Indiana, bro. So when you walk in there, that's $10 an hour is only going to attract a certain level of talent. Chances are your order could be messed up, bro. You're dealing with people who working in hot kitchens all day. They're working around steam. They're working around coffee. They're dealing with people like you. You're not like people feel separated and isolated when something goes wrong with the customer service, and they need to get the get back, bro. They need to get that get back. And people just don't understand. Like you're not the only one who coffee they messed up. There's recourse, but you got to take the right recourse. If you take the right recourse, trust me, they gonna feel it. They gonna feel it, bro. When that DM comes walking in there, they gonna feel it, bro. Because a lot of times, cause when you fill out those surveys and you send those emails and they get negative customer experiences, that affects. Like some of them people get 6 and 7 figures a year. Some of them people have 5 and 6 figure bonuses. When they get that type of negative feedback, that bonus is affected. That DM will walk right in that store and start firing people, even if he's got to go behind the counter himself and serve the coffee himself, and that's a fact, bro. My pit bull's about to bust the door down. But people just don't understand that, bro. People feel like every coffee made that day was perfect except yours. They selected your coffee to screw all the way up, and so you can come in here and you can act a whole fool. And it's just simply not like that, bro.
were unruly. So I don't know what kind of day she's having. I don't know what kind of day the folks behind the counter are having, but that could add to this. But let's see who is the aggressor in all of this. Who is the one who takes this from
And
a
then and then
disagreement to
and then I don't even see the coffee. Like I don't even see the coffee. Did she throw it? Like I'm just trying to figure out what's really going on, bro.
an argument into a physical altercation, which is where all of this ends?
Whoa.
What's that?
So again, no one yet has approached her, but you can see that she is speaking and obviously voicing her issue, her complaint with what happened with her order. And here things get a little
See, he's too
closer.
close.
You
Step
can
back,
see
bro.
the distance between the two. His arm's going out a little bit, her arm going out a little bit as well, as
See,
they
he's
try to
even getting
explain what's
closer.
going on here. She's pointing. Things are escalating. Here comes the shift leader now telling her to leave, and she approaches. The shift leader now in between the two. The shift leader now puts her hands on.
See, she shouldn't have put her hands on
That's
her,
what people are
bro.
seeing, that the shift leader is the first one to put hands on anyone.
Shouldn't have
But
put
then
her
things
hands on
escalate
her.
from there. And now you can see that it's the 20-year-old shift leader who is hand-to-hand combat
And then
at this
these are
moment.
see. This is the reason why I wanted to show you the New York Post video because New York Post New York Post can be racist a lot of times, but New York Post does from time to time have a tendency to show you the whole video like it's on Instagram, dog, uncensored. You know, so that's why I kind of wanted you to see the New York Post video first, and then let's because this guy has the commentary, but he's got his video chopped up into still images, and it doesn't really give you the entire package of what happened and how it went down.
With the 75-year-old, and they both go down onto the floor, and they're on the ground. And now things are separating, and she's still on the ground, but here she is, she's getting up. And this is significant, right? Like the altercation. Oh, you see the circle right there? That's a clump of the 20-year-old's hair. That is a clump of the Tim Hortons employee's hair. And now you see.
And see, like I said before, if it's weave, that's one thing, but if that came directly out of her scalp, boy, I don't know what to tell you. Black folks gonna be hot. Black folks gonna be hot. Um, but see, again, this is why you have to have duty to retreat laws so that people know, look, man, back up. When you have racist laws, you don't have a duty to retreat law. You have all this stand your ground crap. You egging people on and trying to get people to fist fight and shoot each other up all out in the streets over skin color, which I don't know. Of course, I don't know this Horton girl, the Horton employee personally. She might have black babies at home. Who knows? Um, but when you have all these racist laws and everything's politicized and galvanized based off a racist pedophile in the Oval Office, then they'll jump all over this. And you have, I can't mention it enough times. You have a barrier there. Get out of her face, up. Give her a chance to get it out so she can calm down. Fort Wayne's off the chain, bro. It was a couple of months ago. They had another incident that was restaurant related. But there have been a few restaurant incidences in Fort Wayne. One of which was at a McDonald's drive-through in November of 2025. And look, I'm not trying to make Fort Wayne look, a certain way, but you know,
Anita grabbing the hair and putting it in her pocket. Why? Not sure what's going on, but obviously a very traumatic event. She goes and sits down after all that happens. She sits down, but then she's in distress and collapses to the floor. The employees bring a cup of water out. Obviously, 911's called, and she dies. Now, she has some pre-existing condition.
no, that's funny. You just got done beating somebody's grandma to the ground, and now I'm just dying to know who got nervous enough to bring her water. Is just crazy work to me, bro.
As well, but the results, aren't in yet on cause and manner of death in the case. But you saw the altercation. What I saw was an argument that escalated, Anita steps in. She's pointing the finger, encroaching on the space. The 20-year-old stepping between the 75-year-old and the 17-year-old looks like she's the first one to physically touch someone else and puts her hand on the shoulder. And that's when Anita then responds to all of that. Okay. Now, let's put up on the screen what the law.
The issue is that you're dealing with Indiana courts and Indiana politics, and it's a red state. They're not going to see any of that other than that she was trying to get her to calm down. She became physically combative, and that white girl's reaction was self defense. That's the whole point of even having self defense in a state like this. Is so that when it goes down, they can just say self defense every time. And if it's a black versus a white, the white gonna lose, bro.
Is okay, and give you an idea of what happened there. The general right to defense. This is when you are allowed to use some level of force to defend yourself or others in Indiana. A person is justified in using reasonable force against another person to protect the person or a third person, which in this case arguably is the 17-year-old, from what the person reasonably believes to be the imminent use of unlawful force. Okay? So it doesn't require actual response to physical force, but a reasonable belief that there will be an imminent use of unlawful force. So the question here is for the 20-year-old who places her hand on Anita's shoulder and begins.
She honestly should not have thrown that punch. Grandma threw that punch, and they're gonna use that in court if it even goes to court, because it's looking like they're not gonna prosecute it all, really. But if it even goes to court, they're gonna use that to say that there's uh, a reasonable use of self defense was authorized by law. That's what they're gonna say, bro.
The physical part of this back and forth. Did she reasonably believe that she needed to put her hand on the shoulder to stop imminent?
Look, let me tell you something. A lot of times, my problem with black folks is we pick the wrong fight. As somebody's grandma go running up in the coffee shop acting a whole fool. And look, don't get me wrong. The employees need to back up, bro. The employees need to back up and give her space. But somebody's grandma acting a fool. She's 75 years old. She knows she ain't got no punching people. Somebody's gonna swing back, bro. I guarantee you this ain't the first time she's done this. Somebody's going to swing back. And then it's gonna be on. Like you ain't the only one with mental problems. A lot of them people making $8, $9, $10 an hour back there around hot coffee and steam all day, they got mental problems too. And you swinging, they swinging too. Everybody acting a fool up in there. You ain't gonna be the only one to act a fool. And it's just a lot of times we as black people, we pick the wrong fight, bro. We picked the wrong fight. Like this ain't that fight. They knew their grandma was crazy and they was letting her in them streets anyway. I mean, it's what it is, man. I hope everybody get what's coming to them, I guess. I don't know. But it's just such a wild story. I just wanted to talk about it.
Unlawful use of force, an attack by 75-year-old Anita Grayson. Now, it's not a clear-cut case, right? There's some gray area here. There is some gray area as to, okay, what exactly happened in that moment? Who initiated the contact? Is it imminent? It's a judgment call that has to be made. So what I want to do here, because a part of the outrage and what's happening here is response to the Fort Wayne Police Department. So, as I said, Fort Wayne released that video, but they also released a statement. So, let's take a look at the statement to see their perspective on what happened, what you just saw in that video. Wayne Police Department recognizes that any loss of life is tragic. When the circumstances surrounding a death are not immediately clear, those circumstances must be thoroughly and professionally investigated. Following the incident that occurred at the Tim Hortons on May 13th, 2026, involving 75-year-old Anita Grayson and a store employee, FWPD homicide detectives and crime scene personnel conducted a full death investigation. Detectives interviewed witnesses, collected and reviewed surveillance video, gathered evidence, and fully documented the scene. The Allen County Coroner's Office was contacted and
All of this is code for we're about to screw you black people over one more time, and we're going to politicize the fact that this is a red racist state. We do not have a duty to retreat law. We have a stand your ground law, which means your grandma can catch a beat down in the coffee shop if she act a fool. That's what all this is code for.
autopsy was requested. At this time, the cause and manner of death remain pending. The completed investigative file was sent to the Allen County Prosecutor's Office for review on May 19, 2026. FWPD initially released information about this case out of respect for Ms. Grayson's family and in an effort to avoid causing additional distress following the tragic loss of a loved one. However, a dangerously false narrative, along with poor quality video circulating publicly, has led to significant public concern and misinformation. For that reason, and because it is in the public interest, FWPD is releasing the facts of the case along with a clear and complete video of the events that occurred inside Tim Hortons. These are the facts. At approximately 8:09 a.m., Ms. Grayson entered the Tim Hortons to address an issue with an order she had received through the drive-thru.
Yeah, we know
Once
all that,
inside,
bro.
Ms. Grayson began. At that point, the shift lead reacted and moved toward Ms. Grayson while swinging her arms in an attempt to strike her. During the physical altercation, Ms. Grayson grabbed at the shift lead's face, leaving scratches and knocking off her glasses. Ms. Grayson then grabbed the shift lead by the hair and pulled her to the ground and rolled on top of her.
Yeah, we saw all that, bro.
The shift lead can be employees retreated behind the counter, responsive. Medics arrived and began life-saving measures. That a crime occurred, at least not a crime by the Tim Hortons employees. And prosecutorial review process to proceed based on the full body of evidence, not incomplete video clips or inaccurate public narratives. The tone of this release, to me, is clear. The police do not think that a crime occurred, at least not a crime by the Tim Hortons employees. The case and the investigation goes to the prosecutors, and prosecutors ultimately will make the decision on whether or not to proceed. Autopsy, cause, and manner of death. They need that as well to make a determination. But police can make a determination and make an arrest, right? It happens all the time. There's a fight, something happens, people go in, they throw handcuffs on someone, they arrest them, they make the initial charges, then prosecutors come in and they take a look at the case and they decide what to do with it. But here it's clear that police, the investigators of this, do not believe that the Hortons employees did anything wrong here. And it really comes down to that the moment, right? When things go from a verbal argument, right?
So,
Berating the employees, right?
so I'm gonna go ahead and we can go ahead and conclude here. But For me, it's you have to have a duty to retreat law to give people something to think about in terms of not being too quick to react, but being quick enough to step back and everybody think about what they're doing. Because the situation escalated when they got up in her face. She's already ticked off. You got right up in her face. That doesn't excuse her throwing a punch with her 75-year-old self. But, when you have laws geared to get people of different colors to fist fight in the streets and not in public spaces, then the politicians, the racist politicians in this state, can slap hands and they can give each other attaboys and they can smack each other on their little gay Nazi butts. And at the end of the day, she might not face, the employee might not face criminal charges, but she's going to face civil charges. A civil suit is very different than a criminal suit. You beat up somebody's 75-year-old grandma. You went crazy when all you had to do was step back. Even one step would have been enough. You have a barrier in between you and her. Hortons gets to get sued over this now. They're going to get sued and they're going to lose. See, that's the reason why these disgusting, goofball, low IQ, racist, fascist politicians in this state and other red states and up in that Oval Office, they have all these laws that all it does is encourage people of different colors to get into fights in the streets. That's all it does. But at the end of the day, people are going to get sued. People are going to lose money. People are going to wish all they face was jail time. People are going to lose money. People are going to have collection agencies chasing them the rest of their life. Hortons gets to get sued now. They get to get sued because all they had to do was step back. Some attorney is going to dig into both their lives. Somebody's going to figure out what was said between the three parties. And Hortons is going to get sued. They're probably going to settle for probably 5 mil, 3 mil, 5 mil. So then who wins and who loses? That's why you can't have stupid laws like that. Now, when you have a duty to retreat law, that's a little bit of a different ball game. Now Hortons can say, hey, they acted on their own. But when you don't have that duty to retreat in there, and this is me getting into legal, issues or whatever, and I'm sure some attorney could say, no, 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 that ain't it. And that's fine. But I bet you if I'm representing somebody, I bet you it's it. I bet you that. When you have a duty to retreat law, now the company can put that on employees that look, you know, this state has a duty to retreat law. We have it in our period block of instruction and training manuals. Now it's easier for them to separate themselves from the employee. But Hortons is going to be grouped right in there with the employee on that. And it's like, man, don't get in her face. Just step back, bro. Let her get all that out of her system. Take care of 2 or 3 other customers. Give her a chance to calm down and make her stupid coffee. Hope she don't throw it on you and let her get her butt on the road. If you need to involve, and I ain't, encouraging people to snitch or whatever, but if you as a Horton employee feel like that, you know, you don't want that craziness around your employees and other customers, and you feel like you need to involve law enforcement, it is what it is. People crazy grandma getting out of bed in the morning trying to start fist fights with people a fraction their age. I mean, it is what it is, bro. Let her go sit down for a little bit. So I mean, that's the whole point of having law enforcement is to keep somebody's 75-year-old grandma from catching a beat down, and now these people don't have their grandma no more. That's really how it could have went down. Instead, it's this other craziness. So that's ultimately what it is, man. I appreciate y'all. You are strongly encouraged, and it is suggested. Like, share, subscribe for me, and kick that hype button for me, bros. I appreciate it, man. Y'all let me know how y'all feel in the comments, bro. R.I.P. I done shot off all this jibber jabber, but R.I.P. to the people who lost their grandma, who lost their auntie, who lost their friend. R.I.P. Man. And ultimately, your heart goes out to both families, because that girl now has to live with that the rest of her life, and her family now, they're going to have to, for the rest of her life, she's going to need financial assistance to deal with this. So y'all let me know what y'all think.